Today we're going to show you how to install the all-new N55 inlet on my F30 335. Hey, this is Brian. Thanks for watching Kies Motorsports. If you like our videos, give us a thumbs up. Make sure to subscribe and check us out at KiesMotorsports.com. That's right, the N55 inlet from MST is finally here. Now, before we get started with the actual installation, let's take a moment to talk about why we are going to be upgrading to the MST silicone inlet. So first off, it is extremely durable, as you'll see, very similar to how the N20 ones are made, where there's a piece of billet aluminum that's going to slide into the turbo. We'll show you that in just one moment. And then very, very, very durable silicone. Now, as you may know, with BMW charge pipes and inlets, they are made of this extremely brittle plastic, and actually, off camera a second ago, we accidentally broke it by just putting it on the table. So you're going to find this piece crack off, which is what holds it into the turbo. And also this area right here tends to crack off. Altogether, it's just a horrible design. The N20 inlets especially are prone to break. I can't tell you how many calls we get about the N20 inlet that need to be overnighted, and this isn't far behind. You can see that I had a tab that was already broken off here. This cracked off while we were talking about how brittle they are, and yeah, so we're just gonna get rid of that one. Now for this job, it is a little bit tight, so what we wanted to do is we wanted to show you with my stock N55 turbo what is going on. So you're gonna have your factory inlet, assuming you have your factory inlet there. It's going to slide into the turbo, and it's going to be bolted on with a 10mm nut. So we're going to need to remove that. You slide it out. There's one other connection that needs to be removed that you'll see. Then you disconnect it from the intake. Now, one thing that I do want to let you know, I have the old style pure inlet, which doesn't have the portion that's secured by a nut, so mine's actually just pressed in. So my removal process is going to be a little bit different, but the installation is going to be exactly the same. So without further ado, let's get started with the install. To begin, what we're going to do is we are going to remove the engine cover. So to do so, all you need to do is pull up. We're gonna set that out of the way. Then, regardless of which intake you have, remove your intake. With the inlet off, we can start to see this part exposed right here. Now, there's a little piece of plastic that should be there. Mine was brittle on the last one and broke off. And right about here, there's going to be a 10mm. Over here, there is a T20 screw, and there's a little clip that we need to undo. Again, it's going to be very difficult to see, especially because it's like this and it's pretty far down. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take my pick tool, I'm going to lower it down to this general area, and there's a little connection that needs to be disengaged. So I'm going to very carefully lift up the little bar and push that off. And then what we're going to do, we're going to remove this T20. Something to be extremely careful about, this PCV valve is extremely brittle. These are, for whatever reason, BMW made these out of the material. All this stuff is so brittle that if you bend this the wrong way, they will literally crack in half. And we've actually had that happen. Mine actually broke in half, so we replaced it a little while ago. So mine's going to be a little bit more flexible, but something to note, you may want to actually have a second one of those on hand, just in case yours breaks during the install. Once we get that connection off, there's a T20, we're going to remove that. Then you can unplug this, and then off this little tab, there is, I believe it is a 10mm. We're going to release that, and then we are going to just slide mine out of the turbo. Again, mine doesn't have any kind of nut or bolt that is securing it to the turbo. It's just pressed in right now. Now, if you have your stock inlet installed, you are going to have to get in there with a 10mm and remove that nut. But since we don't have that, we're not going to be doing that, but we'll still show you where to go and how to access it. What I just got done doing is taking my pick tool and releasing the clip. So if you look down, I have a little piece of masking tape with an arrow to give you a general sense of where that clip is. You can see it's disconnected down there. Now with that off, we can remove the T20 screw, which is conveniently hidden over here. But again, if you can look where my little arrow is on my masking tape, you'll be able to see where it's hidden. So now I am using a little 1/4 inch ratchet with an extension and a T20. Lower this down here. Now if you have a swivel, it helps a little bit, but you can get it straight on if you don't have a swivel handy. Hardest part's just getting it lined up. I'm finally at a point where I can remove the screw. Now you may notice that we removed this top portion here. It is not necessary. We actually moved it for filming. But since I have that, I'm going to just pull this entire thing off. First off, here is the screw before I drop it. And then I'm going to take a flathead screwdriver. Just carefully pry this out. So there you go. So this is where that one connection plugs in. And then over here is where that T20 holds everything in place. Then if you look over here where my little flag is, it's coming in handy. This is the last bolt that you need to remove, and it is a 10 millimeter. Okay, so what I'm doing is I'm using a ratcheting open-ended wrench. That helps this come out easy. All right, just about have it out. Okay, and there is our 10 mil. Now that you have a better sense of what is going on, we took the intake off, we took the PCV hose out. The nut that you need to get to is down here. So if you are looking from above, you're gonna see your charge pipe that connects your turbo to your intercooler, and it's going to be dead in the way. So what we're gonna do now is we're gonna put the car in the air, and that's gonna give us a little bit better access to get to that 10 mil. And like you've probably heard us say before, most of what we're doing, you don't need to have a lift. Jack and jack stands is perfectly acceptable. One other thing that I forgot to mention earlier that I don't want to forget about, you will notice on the factory inlet that this is pretty thick right here. And it's completely fine if you have a stock turbo. However, if you have an upgraded turbo, like a Pure, like we have on this car, what they do, MST has two different fittings, the aluminum fittings here. They have one that is shaped more like this, which is optimal for an OEM turbo, or if you have an upgraded turbo, they have an upgraded turbo version. Now before you can access this, we would recommend pulling down the underbody protection. We had it off because we just did blow off valve the other day. But if you look up through this little hole, I have my trusty little flag here, you can see where we need to get to. Now the best way that we have found to get to this little bolt is if you go through here with one of these ratcheting little wrenches, you can get right on it from this side. Just be very careful, maybe have a magnet ready so that you don't lose the nut as it falls off. With that said, let's put the car on the ground and pull out the inlet. All right, so what you can do is just start to wiggle your inlet out of your turbo. Mine's almost out. And just be careful pulling it out and make sure that you're not getting snagged or hung up on anything. There we go. There it is. That's the old one. Next, what we're going to do is we are going to install the aluminum insert. We're going to do this separately from the silicone. What you do is you basically just get this, you line it up, you press it into the turbo, and then it's going to give you a ton of space to get the nut on. Once you have the nut on, we are going to slide the silicone over and then we're going to tighten up the hose clamp. So at this time, again, sorry you're not going to really be able to see anything, we are just going to reach down from the top and get this installed. So let's make it happen. Okay. Now what we can do is we can get our 10mm and thread it on. Be super careful not to drop it in the turbo. You want to make sure that you go underneath. All right, so we have our socket taped on so it doesn't accidentally fall in the turbo. And we're going to just snug up that nut. Now we're not using any specific torque spec. The pure inlet, the old one at least, didn't even have a nut holding it in. So I would just go snug and just not too tight. Now what we're going to do is we are going to take our inlet. We have our hose clamp positioned in a very specific way. If you have it like this, you're going to have easy access to get to that bolt right there, which is an 8mm, which is something you're going to need to know in just a few minutes. We're going to position it, we'll say a 1/4 inch or so back. We're going to put it down here and slide it on. This part of the process is a little bit blind to do. You're just going to have to go by feel. So we're going to take our inlet. We're going to go in at this direction. And you want to just squish it and get it to go where you want it. Just be careful. You have a coolant line over here, and you also have some other electrical connections. Just very carefully guide it into place, just like we did right there. And then the biggest thing is to make sure that everything is where you want it to end up. So this is roughly where we want it to end up. And also that aluminum piece is right where we want it. So now for this next part, my head's probably going to be in the way. Name of the game is to get it to line up on that aluminum piece. So just do your best to slip that on there, and then just continue to work it on. All right, I just got it. And it should slip on with relative ease once you get it lined up correctly. Once you have the silicone on the aluminum piece, what you can do is put the car back up in the air again, or we're going to tighten down that hose clamp. Now, I have an 8mm swivel, a couple extensions, and we're going to tighten up that bottom hose clamp, and then we can move to the PCV valve, put our intake back on, and this install is done. Now that the bottom is tight, we can reinstall our PCV tube here. So it's going to just get pressed in. Remember that there's that little clip that's going to clip on the bottom. And then we are going to reinstall our screw here. Make sure to use the one that comes with the MST inlet, because this is threaded and machined, and your other one screws into plastic. So if you use the old one, it's not going to work and it's going to strip it out. So just make sure you use the right one. And once you've done that, if you took it off completely, all you need to do is just get this and just snap it back on, but you probably left it down here. So this time, let's install it. Okay, once you have that all installed, you can plug it in. It's really awkward to plug it in, but there we go. Listen for that audible click. All right, it's time for that little screw. As you can see, we taped it on so it doesn't fall off into the place of the unknown. So what we're gonna do, you're not gonna be able to see any of this, but wanna make sure that you get everything pretty much lined up where you want it before you go in with the screwdriver. And just to give you a warning, it is extremely tight in here. Now that everything is complete with the inlet, it is now time to reinstall our intake. So at this time, put your intake back on. At this point of the process, we are done installing our MST N55 inlet. Now, if you're interested in the N55 inlet from MST, we have them available at KiesMotorsports.com. We have some links for you down in the description. Now, if you are going to be tackling this project, we do recommend doing it with someone else, as it is a pretty complicated installation. It doesn't look like much, but it could probably take you, we'll say 2-3 hours or so. By the time you take out the intake, you get the car up in the air, and you do everything you need to do. But anyway, once again, my name is Bryan. Thanks so much for watching Kies Motorsports. If you like our videos, give us a thumbs up. Make sure to subscribe and check us out at KiesMotorsports.com for all your BMW retrofit, performance, and aesthetic needs. Once again, my name is Bryan. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.